Thank you. Hello, good evening. How nice to see you. Huh? Yeah?
Yes, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, thank you. We're going to just dive right in,
All right. So should I start?
please.
All right. So I guess I'm going to start with reading a section from my most recent book, The Wind at My Back. I'm not going to give any background because I think it's pretty self-explanatory once I start it. When the curtain rose and the company took our bows, I was back in my body. Yes, I know. There with the audience, feeling all the emotions, I could see the wings full of my colleagues taking in the moment with me, including James and the whole cast. And then Lauren Anderson, the black ballerina legend whom I first saw on the cover of Dance magazine when I was 17 years old, appeared from downstage right with a bouquet of flowers. Ballet traditions hold that bouquets are presented by men, typically ushers. To be presented a bouquet by a trailblazer who'd influenced my own career during my Swan Lake debut at the Met is a memory I will always hold dear. My heart exploded with pride as she lifted me in her arms and twirled me around. Lauren, the only black ballerina I'd ever known to dance the full-length Swan Lake, was there on the stage with me. I couldn't believe what was happening. The next day, she shared her thoughts. You were awesome yesterday. Have you come down from the clouds? When you do, remember that less is more in the third act. You are already strong and can do everything. You can only give what you have. You don't have to be more than you are. You are enough. Breathe out before the fouettes and relax in your plie. You will really enjoy the next time you do it. I kept telling Raven I wanted to see the next one. Thank you so much for including me in this special time in your career. I heard her loud and clear. I was enough. We were enough. And then came Raven. Watching her walk out onto the Metropolitan Opera House stage that day remains one of the absolute highlights of my career. She came out of the first wing, downstage right, in the red dress that she wore for important occasions, holding a big bouquet of flowers. I immediately burst into tears. This wasn't about me. This was her moment. The audience roared with admiration and respect for what she meant to me and to so many for whom she helped pave the way. It was as if my whole career had flashed before my eyes in that moment. All I could think to do was drop to one knee and bow to her. I'm here because of her. In her joy, she began to undulate her arms like wings. It was undeniable. We were both swan queens. Once the curtain closed, I had a moment to speak with Irina and Kevin, and they were as proud as I was of this accomplishment. Debbie Allen, Judith Jamison, Stephanie Dabney, DTH's Firebird, and so many more black luminaries had gathered in the grand tier of the house, where the moments just continued to feel even more unreal. Then Debbie Allen stood in the center of the crowd and spoke. We are living in a time where our nation is fractured, where we don't know who we are, where fear is our guide. And your performance today told us that there is hope, that there is something more that we can believe in. I stood by Raven and we held hands as we absorbed Debbie's words. Nearly 50 years separated us in age, but our journey and this moment, which belonged to us both, made us one.
There's so much in what you've just read. You can only give what you have. You are enough. You don't have to give more. You are enough. And the other side of that coin is, it's not about you. Huh. Interesting, yes?
I think so. And when you said you can't pour from an empty cup and you are enough. And how many black girls struggle with this every day, that we're being asked to be more than we are. we don't recognize that we're enough, but we have all of the tools and the gifts that we have already, and it's still not about us, and we still lift as we climb.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, for me, my friendship and my relationship with Raven Wilkinson, and for those of you who might not know who she was the first and only black woman to perform with the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo in the 1950s, which is one of the most important ballet companies of the 20th century that really brought ballet to America. And Raven was a soloist in the company and endured, a lot dancing with the company when they toured through the South and dealing with, segregation and Jim Crow. And her life was being threatened every single time she would tour through the South by the KKK. She ended up moving to Europe, as a lot of black artists did in that time, to continue on having a career. But I met her. I must have been, I think, 29 years old. I'm 40 now, so it was some time ago. And I found out that she lived a block away from me, and that she'd been attending all of my performances in New York City at American Ballet Theater. And it completely changed the way I saw my career and my purpose. I was kind of in this bubble of working towards being the best dancer that I could be. Of course, understanding and realizing that I'm a black woman. I was the only black woman at American Ballet Theater for the first decade of my career. But when she came into my life, it was this larger understanding of what it means to carry on not only her legacy, but the legacies of so many black women who have opened the door for me to be in this position, and what it means for me to be an example and a mentor every time I step onto the stage for so many who are watching. So this book was, a tribute to our friendship, but the incredible impact that she's had on so many people. And just what better way to show that than through the lessons I've learned from her and actual, things and examples, stories, that I've experienced with her.
But she came for you. I mean, she came and she sat for you. And so I think like the wind at my back, when you think about she came for you and what that meant for you, but what that meant for so others, I find that so compelling.
Thank you.
Who was the wind at your back?
The wind at my back is actually my mother, who I'm first generation college, first generation corporate America. My mother did untold jobs so that my brother and I would have the opportunity to go to college. She and my dad met in the Air Force. They both enlisted right after college. And then she worked at the bank, she worked at the post office, and she went from like a corporate type job to make more money at the post office so that we could go. And so she was the wind at my back. She's 85, still living. And still one of the wisest women that I know. I am supremely blessed.
So there's another aspect in your book that I think is critical. When we talk about success factors, yes, it's good to have a dream, yes. It's good to have a vision of where you would like to be and to see yourself there, yes. It's so good to believe in yourself. And this is true for all humanity. This is true for all people. And there's another pillar of support that is essential. Discipline. Yes. Discipline. Yes. You talk about it. You talk about it in your book, and I'm going to hear you talk about it in your career too. But I know firsthand from growing up with my sister, Debbie Allen, about this dancer's discipline. It is, I would say the only thing that compares to it in my mind is military. Right?
Yes, I agree. You know, being a dancer is one of the most grounding and humbling experiences I've ever had in my life. There's no faking it. You are raw and you are naked and you're exposed every single day. Every single day we wake up and we go to ballet class and we repeat these same motions and movements and combinations over and over again, because that's what you have to do in order to have the stamina, the strength, the muscle memory, the artistic craft, to get through a ballet, to accomplish the ballet technique and beyond. And again, like you can't miss a day. It's this nonstop commitment to performance, to the stage, and to these characters that you're portraying. But it's the most fulfilling thing as well, to know that you're giving so much of yourself to something and seeing this incredible outcome. You know, I haven't been on stage in 3 years, and I've had a lot of time to kind of step back and reflect on so much of my career when I haven't had a chance to stop for 20 years straight as a professional. And it's really, it feels not human when I look back at the things that I've done on the stage, and I'm like, how in the world did I do that? And now that I'm a mom, I'm like, how am I going to do that again?
That's another discipline. Okay, there's the physical discipline, but there's also mental discipline. In one portion of your book, see if I can remember exactly. It's kind of early on in the book. There was a disappointment, but you couldn't dare show it, and you wouldn't give attitude about it at all, even though it was very hurtful to you. You had to maintain that mental posture. Otherwise, it wasn't going to read, right? If you didn't have the mental posture, it was going to read. The mental posture of, I'm here, this is what I do, I'm ready to do it, there's no problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of being an artist and being a performer. The audience comes and, they don't know what's going on in your life and in your personal life, and they don't need to know, and they're not paying for tickets to know, to see, what you're going through. And so it's part of our job, it's our responsibility to kind of be able to mentally compartmentalize a lot of things, or whether it's having injuries and having the mental strength to persevere and push through. It's absolutely a discipline and a part of the training and a part of the technique of being a ballerina. I think that's why a lot of athletes feel a connection and a similarity, because it takes that same focus and commitment and dedication, both mentally and physically, to be able to go out there and perform day after day and night after night, no matter what your body is feeling. But even more so as a Black artist and as a Black woman in the field, to be able to stay focused and stay grounded and navigate through this white space and keep your head held high and not get over emotional, because that's exactly what they're expecting from a Black woman. That's the stereotype. And it takes a lot of mental strength and support and mentorship to be able to be in a position like that and succeed.
And in your career, what was your discipline?
My parents taught me that I had to be better, smarter, and faster to compete at average. And so I had to be even better than that to compete beforehand. And so what they taught me was that grades, that studying, that was the way out of that. And so after school, both my parents worked. My brother and I, products of the YMCA and the local library. And that's where we spent after school and summers. And then we ate lunch at the church, gave lunch. But in all of those spaces, we had mentors, we had tutors, we were exposed to people from different professions, different careers. And not only did we have discipline, we were disciplined, and we knew that. And I went to Catholic school in my early ages, but it really was this I never thought it was fair that to compete at average, I had to be better just to be seen as average. And so my whole goal was to disprove that and to go further than that.
How did you disprove it?
I said, if you think this is something, watch this. And so, and if I had a part to speak, I was the understudy. The person got sick. The my second grade teacher said, you were made for that part. And I was thinking, I knew I was made for that part. But one day I was driving to work. And I was on my way to work in California. I work at Google, and I wasn't feeling great. And I was talking to my mom, and she said, "What's the matter with you?" And I was like, like people keep giving me words to say. I give this speech today. She said, "You know what to say. You were the understudy in the second grade, and you outshone the whole part." And so when I got to work, I said, "What are the top 3 things that you want me to say?" I said, and I need to actually step away for a few minutes, and I will come back to you. And when I came back, I spoke, and they said, "Oh my God, could you come write this for this other person?" I said, "No, I can only write this for myself." I said, "She's got to go feel it." But that really was what it was. But it was the mentors and the people that I had backing me. They gave me the courage and the confidence to believe that I could do that and to do it. And the more you do that over and over, and you know the students here, you prove it, and then you can prove it even more.
All this proving, and it's not about you.
Not about you.
All this
It's not
proving,
about
and it's
you.
not about you. Who is it about?
Well, it's about everybody here, and it's really about a greater humanity than ourselves. Because, the purpose that we have, like Misty had no idea that Raven was sitting in that audience for a time watching her. You don't know who's watching you, who you're inspiring, who you're encouraging to take that next step, that next mile, who's having that last minute. I think it's for greater common humanity.
I think so too. I think so too. I think humanity imposes limitations upon itself by refusing to accept itself in its fullness. And I always wondered about that from the time I was very, very young. I used to gaze up at the stars at night. And that time in Houston, Texas, you could see stars at night. Yeah. And if you're ever in a region where you can look up and see the stars at night, it's a magical thing. Because the universe is so full. And as a child, I used to look up and wonder, where did it come from? And where did I come from? And what is it? Big thoughts like that. Children can do that. But then you impose upon young minds these mental constructs of limitation because of gender, because of body type, because.
I think there's something that's so important and so connected and kind of grounded in everything you're talking about within the arts. Even as a 40-year-old woman, I can still go on stage and it's like I'm a little girl again, with that idea of being able to just let go of everything that's happening, you know, all these constructs and what's happening in the world, and just be whatever the character is, you know, whether it's a cat or the firebird or a swan, a fairy, and completely be youthful and free. That's so magical to me, and what's so important about the arts, that you can kind of hold on to this idea of not being affected, I guess, that I think is so important for our society and for our communities.
Even art forms like the fiber arts, like quilting and knitting and crocheting, that are passed down. Like my favorite de-stress, I'm either knitting or I'm quilting, I'm in my craft room, because that creating allows me to be still from the inside out, because I don't want to miss me. Yeah. Ooh. Like I want to be still enough that I'm not missing myself.
And that's the title of your book. I Don't Want to Miss Me, right? I love that. That's a good title.
Thank you, I receive.
You sing. Oh. You know, and you sing well.
Oh,
and because I saw you, and I said, who knew? She sings, and she sings well.
I'm not sure I would say that, but I would say that there's something that happens with, it's the dedication, it's the commitment, it's the sacrifice of being given an opportunity to take on a challenge. And that's what the arts have taught me, of taking on these challenges and doing my best within those challenges. So I performed on Broadway once in a show called On the Town, and it was life-changing as an artist to experience diving into something that's very different from what I've trained most of my life in. So having to go on stage and do a different style of dance, recite lines. Actually, the very first time I ever did that, and I think the only time, was with Debbie in The Chocolate Nutcracker when I was 13 years old or something like that. But then the second time I would do that would be in this big role, and having to sing. But the challenge made me a better actress, a better performer when I went back to ABT and was performing these classical works. But I love a challenge. I love feeling like there is no way I can do this, and then coming out of on the other end and feeling so empowered and like I conquered something.
This can be said about any field in life, don't you think?
I think this can be said about any field. You know, the field I work in, which is tech, there are not a lot of black and brown people yet in tech. We're working on that, making a lot of progress. But when the tech field started, just historically, there weren't a lot of black and brown people in it. And it can be said about anybody, because what you said, it's also true of tech, where you need access to understand, like, what are the skills that need it? What can I do there? I like to solve problems. I like to build things. I like to see how things interact, and I have the creativity and the innovation to do it. You just need the access and the opportunity to do it. And that really is the goal of the work that I do at Google, is to create spaces where people who've historically been denied access in the workspace, to be able to come in and to fill those spaces and to learn about them and to get excited about it. And so we're trying to change the face of what it means to be an engineer. Like, I'm the face of what it means to look like an engineer. And so all of that matters. And so I think this can apply to any field.
It's a motley crew. Absolutely. What's next?
Oh, there's so much. Where do I begin? I've always looked at dance as a stepping stone to do and say more. I've never seen performing at the Metropolitan Opera House, as incredible as that is, as the end-all be-all. To me, it's been an amazing platform to be able to be representation, to be able to expand beyond the stage. I've started my foundation, the Misty Copeland Foundation, and we have our first signature program called Be Bold, which stands for Ballet Explorations. Ballet offers leadership development. And it's a free ballet class, and we're slow growing, but it's in underrepresented communities. So right now we're starting out in the Bronx and in Harlem at community centers. So right now we're at 7 Boys and Girls Club sites. And we've created our own framework, our own curriculum, so that it's something, where it's not this white European art form that's coming into these Black and brown communities and saying, like, connect with this, but finding ways of shifting and changing with still using this incredible technique of ballet that is not racist. It's everything that's been added on over the years, the gatekeepers that have, I think, created something that maybe weren't the intentions. So it's through naming the bars after Black and brown dancers and having to know a fact or two about it when they go to the bar, or having live musicians who look like them that are not just playing piano, they're playing the drums and bass and guitar, and just finding ways to connect to these communities but still learning ballet with the intentions of being better people and citizens and hopefully leaders in their communities. And so everything that I'm doing has the same mission, whether it's through my production company where we're creating content that's showing ballet and dance in a fuller, more layered way than you often see depicted in the films and shows. I often think these parents who are watching films like The Black Swan, like, I wouldn't want to put my young kid in ballet if I saw that film. Like, I don't want them exposed to that. But there's so much more to our experiences as artists and as dancers that I want to be able to show and bring more people in and more diversity to it.
I think we have ballerinas in the audience. Yes. Do you have a question? Do you have a question?
So when you're performing on stage, what are the most important moments for a dancer to remember, especially in ballet?
The question is, when you're performing on stage, what are the most important moments for a dancer to remember?
Oh my! I think it's to be present, and I'm sure you could say that for anything. Giving a presentation, whatever it is within your work, is to really be focused and be present. And I often say to young people that it's so important to remember why you do it. I think we often get caught up in this idea of perfection or comparing yourself to other people, and you kind of go back to the basics of, like, why am I doing this? I'm doing it because I love it, or I'd hope that's why you're doing it. It's so much hard work that if you don't love it, it's just not worth it, and you most likely won't last because it is a commitment. So I would say really just try to be as present as possible. Enjoy yourself, be the character, and have fun.
You have a question?
Yes, I do. So, how did you go into choosing American Ballet Theater as your dream company?
I love that, and I see your shirt. You are an ABT fan, or have you been to ABT summer program? Okay.
The question is, how did she choose American Ballet Theater to be her company?
Yes. Well, so I started dancing at a late age. I started at 13 years old. I was discovered at a Boys and Girls Club. I took my first ballet class on a basketball court, and the teacher who discovered me told me that I was a prodigy, and she moved me into her home, and it was a whirlwind. I had an amazing experience of really kind of being guarded within this studio where my teacher really made me feel that ballet was for me, that I wasn't different, that I belonged. Debbie was a huge part of that as well, embracing me in kind of the Black dance community as well, which was really important. But Cindy, who was my teacher, she was showing me videos and images and books of ABT from the beginning, and I would ask her why. And she never said because as a Black dancer, that's where you're going to be able to most likely fit in, but she just said it is culturally the most diverse company at that level, and I think that would be a really great place for you to be at. When I got there, I was the only Black woman in the company, but it was very different from a lot of ballet companies, like a New York City Ballet or a Bolshoi or Paris Opera, where you have to train in their school and everyone looks the same, and it's really difficult to get into the company if you don't look a certain way, if you don't have white skin, is what I'm saying. So ABT was really a place where I felt that I could be myself and really be embraced because people were coming from all different walks of life.
Aha. Yes, sir.
How did you overcome racial stereotypes?
How do you overcome racial stereotypes?
How you overcome racial stereotypes is one, other people might put racial stereotypes on you, but it's really about the label that you put on yourself. So this goes back to like your own mental model. We talked a little bit about that, how you think about yourself. And it's really not about how you fit into spaces. It's about how you add into spaces, and you know the superpower of what you bring to those spaces.
That was beautifully said.
Hi. What are you guys currently doing, and what do you plan on doing in the future?
Well, not me.
I think you're doing a lot right now.
I've returned to my alma mater.
Woo!
And I'm working with some pretty incredible people. I'm working with some brilliant people. And academia is not an easy space. It's not an easy space to negotiate or navigate. But in working with brilliant people, there is support, and there is inspiration, and there is understanding, and there is camaraderie. So I could get up and go in the morning, and because it's very different from what I'm accustomed to doing. Very different. I really love being around students. I do. It's never about me. It's so interesting to hear you, because this morning I thought that, I said, none of this that I've done, none of this that I've been a part of, none of it has been about me. It's good to remember that.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I guess what's next, like what's really coming up next, like very soon, is the first film that I produced. It is premiering at Tribeca Film Festival in a couple of weeks.
Whoa! What is it?
So it's a short film. It's called Flower. It's Nelson George is an executive producer on it as well, who directed my documentary called A Ballerina's Tale. And we kind of came up with this concept for the film. But it's a short film. It's an art activism film. It's a dance film. I'm starring in it opposite an incredible dancer named Babatunji Johnson, who dances with Lines Ballet in San Francisco, Alonzo King's company, and an incredible group of dancers from the community of Oakland that do a style of street dance called turf dancing. And so it's a beautiful story about intergenerational relationships. I play a young woman, and her mother has dementia. She's struggling with understanding who she is and how she fits into her community, and really dealing with what the community of Oakland is going through now: gentrification and redlining and the housing crisis and homelessness, and how dementia parallels with gentrification, this loss of memory and loss of culture within a community. And so it's this young woman, Rose, and her journey to embracing her community, realizing that she's not alone and that she, has a whole community who's there for her and to support her. And it's all told without any dialogue and through dance and movement.
Beautiful. Flower. Flower. We'll look for that.
I had this life-changing moment a few weeks ago. I was asked to join the World Economic Forum. They reached out. Thank you. And I was actually quite surprised. And so I went as the representative for Google at the World Economic Forum. And I thought, like, what am I going to talk about, and as you go with world leaders. And when I got there and I stood on the stage and we were talking about growth and what it meant, not just to have jobs of the future and roles of the future, but what does the future look like? What does racial justice look like? I knew I had found my tribe. And I was so moved by the heart-centered, the principled, the value-centered of our world leaders who thought about like poor countries and how do wealthier countries help poorer countries, and where do we get this resource from or that resource, and how do we see around the corner. And so I'm working with them on partnering, a formal work stream, partnering for racial justice that is global. And so I have a passion about ensuring that not just that we have this competency across like lines of difference and racial lines in particular, but that we're really able to close the gaps and make the progress that the world needs to see. I may not see this in my lifetime, but I certainly want to do my part for the while that I am here on the earth. I am working on a book, so thank you for helping me with the title. So those are things that I am working on.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. A last question. This young lady in blue.
What made you want to dance, and who or what helped you exceed?
What made her want to dance?
There was always music playing in my house growing up. I would say that was like the one constant, because there was so much chaos in my house. My mom was a single parent, mostly to 6 children. A lot of moving around, a lot of instability. A lot of the times we didn't have a roof over our head. When I started dancing, we were living in a motel. And music was something that was an anchor in our home. And it was a way for me to express myself. So I was connecting with the lyrics and songs I was hearing, whether it was Aretha Franklin or Anita Baker, Sade or Mariah Carey. I was connecting to these lyrics, and that was my way of processing the things that I was going through. But I didn't want to sing. I wanted to move my body when I heard this music. And then it's slowly developed into me wanting to go on stage, with my whole family was completely shocked by, because I was so introverted and so shy. But I ended up auditioning for the drill team at my middle school, and my family was like, do you understand what you need to do? Like, you have to go on stage. And I was like, no, I know. And I'm gonna audition for captain. And they were like, what? So I ended up making captain. And then it just kind of all took off from there. But all of my teachers throughout my journey have contributed to my success and me getting to where I am, was having just incredible support and people who believed in me and showed me that I could be more than my circumstances.
How did you choose your career?
Really, I will tell you, how I chose my career, I took a chance on a series of experiences. I had an early mentor who said, grab as many experiences as you can early, so that when you get to top roles, like nobody could tell you, you don't have the experience. And so I grew a career in human resources. And when I came to Google, I started off in a career in human resources, and later on I was asked to move to diversity. And I had been in the role about 8 months, and the woman, my predecessor, came to me, and she said, I'm leaving, I just want to let you know that. And she said, Melanie, they're going to ask you to act, in the role. And I said, oh, I'm not going to do that. I said, if they want to give me the role, I'll take it, but, I'm not going to act in it. But, I'm happy to help whoever you find to do that. And I never had another conversation about it. I got on a stage and presented that year's diversity annual report. I spoke about on a major stage at Google about what it meant to be a Black woman, to see the numbers that reflect me, and what it meant to be both a contributor and a consumer of the work. And after that, they told me I had the job. And so I'm appreciative for all of the experiences that I had that allowed me to do this.
Gather all the experiences that you can. Some people just coming. Come here. Come here. Come. Hi. Come. That's it. What's your name?
Ryan?
Ryan. Are you a ballerina too?
No.
I see the Washington School of Ballet. Is that on your shirt? Oh, School for Girls. Okay, I thought it was for ballet.
For girls. Gather all the experiences that you can. Do you have any idea of what you would like to be when you become a young woman?
No.
Good. That means you're not locked. Good. Gather all the experiences that you can. And what's your name?
Ryan?
Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Just love it, yeah?
I had no idea what I wanted to be at that age either.
I don't think I did either. I was crawling around. This has been great. It's been wonderful being with all of you. You have a question?
How do you connect your cultural identity to your career in such a predominantly white area of work?
Who are you?
My name is Aaliyah Brown.
Don't you carry yourself with you wherever you go? What's the dilemma? The larger humanity. My wish for you is that you see yourself in everyone you encounter. My wish for you is that you see yourself in all creation so that you don't feel a separation. And there's no question about bringing your full self with you wherever you are. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Huh? Oh, yes? How much more time? What? Have an hour. These people have to eat.
They said yes. We are hungry dancers.
They're dancers. They're hungry. You're hungry. You're dancing. That's another thing. You all have great appetites.
Yes, we do. I think that's another part of, what I was talking about when it comes to just wanting to tell fuller stories of the experience of being an artist and being a dancer, because of this kind of narrow lens that it's been depicted for so long, of how it's been depicted for so long. Yes, dancers eat. We are athletes, and we need to fuel our bodies to do what we need to do. It's true, and we, most of us, I think, are sane. She's like, I disagree. But yes, we do have appetites, big appetites.
I know my niece Vivian, this is my sister Debbie's daughter, was staying with me for a summer before she began her studies at Fordham. And now I've known Vivian since she was a child, a little bitty thing. And here she was, a young woman getting ready to start her college studies at Fordham, majoring in dance. And I was amazed to see this child could eat a pot of rice. A whole pot of, with everything else that she was eating. And then it just seemed to just evaporate. It just seemed to just go somewhere, right? That's,
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yes,
You
that's
are
the
that way.
experience, yes.
You have daily disciplines for yourself?
What type of disciplines?
Daily disciplines.
I do. One is prayer. So I don't let my feet touch the floor without prayer. And when I end my workday, I write a list of the things that I want to get done the next day, so that there's no guesswork tomorrow what I want to work on. And I only think about big things. I don't think a lot about the little things anymore. I think about what are the big things, because rarely, if you think about it, for even some of your school projects, are you going to do it all in a day? So you have to think about what's that great big thing I need to accomplish? And then I try to end the day and what am I grateful for? What am I really blessed about? So those are three.
That's a great discipline.
Thank you.
That's a great discipline. Questions? Okay. And then you. Okay.
So you mentioned you're doing an arts as activism project currently at our school. We're doing arts as activism as well, and I was wondering if there's any tips, ideas to help make a message come across in our art form.
The question is about arts activism and tips of how to make an idea come across in your work.
I would say that whatever that topic, issue, social issue, whatever it is you're covering, is to do as much research as possible and know as much about it as possible. So for example, coming into a community that I didn't grow up in Oakland, California, and wanting to be respectful to a community of the homeless and houseless, people that are dealing with insecurities within that. We spent a year out in the field visiting these encampments, having conversations with people so that we were not portraying anyone in a way that was disrespectful, from being ignorant. So I would say just to do all the research and learn all that you can about whatever the topic is you're covering.
And Melanie, in your field, you have to do a lot of research as well, don't you?
I do. I do a lot of research across a lot of different communities and unexpected sources. And I think the really important thing, and I think you said it here too, Misty, is that when you do research, the question you have to ask yourself is like, what's missing? Like, is there a question that's unanswered? Have I asked every single question? Is every part represented? And if it's not, go back and answer that question in your research and think about whoever you're presenting it to. What questions are they going to ask me? And they're going to answer those questions.
Yes.
It's a beautiful sight to just see. It's so encouraging to see you guys. I wanted to make sure to bring my almost 2-year-old just so she sees this as normal and just amazing. So, she says hi. I just wanted to ask, in raising children and seeing your beautiful journeys, just any tips or advice in this new generation, inspiring, encouraging them to achieve their dreams, because the world she's growing up in is very different from the world a lot of us are growing up in with social media and various influences. So staying grounded and just advice, tips for parents raising young girls today.
So my daughter is right below you. So sitting right there, raise your hand, Lauren, is my daughter Lauren. That's my granddaughter. I'm now a Gigi, so Noelle is 5 months old, and I have twin sons as well. I say raising children, people will tell you that like quality is better than quantity, but you can't get to quality without quantity. And so bring your children with you. Like take your children wherever it is and children, and do that. But how you believe and what you model for your children, that is really what's most important. I will tell you, I told you I'm first generation college. My daughter has a PhD. I'm blown away by my daughter. I was telling Misty, I never even had a dream as a child that I would grow up and get like a PhD. And so but it doesn't take long to pass things along from generation to generation. And so let them experience everything, give them all the love you have. They're very resilient, and take them everywhere that you can.
Absolutely. Yes.
Hi, I have a question for you. So I want to work in the tech area as well. Is there any advice as a Black woman you would give to anyone or any young Black woman who wants to work in tech?
I would. So one, I want you to get some experience coding. And I want you to, and there are lots of ways to do it. There are lots of organizations. Top organization to do it is National Society of Black Engineers, has NSBE Junior chapters. And so I would look for those in the summer programs. Right here in DC, Howard University has a lot of wonderful programs as well. And then, as you're in those programs and you're learning, ask questions. Even like what you're doing when you're building those Lego sets, you're making them move, you're thinking about like how to make things work. Like all of that is what it takes to work in tech. And then you want to make sure, last thing I'll say is, you want to make sure that you take math very seriously. And you want to take it early. I know for some people math is a bad word, but you have to take the right math class in middle school so that you're on the right track to math when you're in high school. And so now just think about the math track that you're on. If you're not on the right math track, that's still okay. Go to summer school, catch up, and then go on that math journey. But go as far as you can with math as well. But there's so many programs that are designed just for you because I want you to go work in tech, and I'm here to help you too.
Way in the top, waving a white flag.
I wanted to know if Misty Copeland could talk about her Under Armour ad. That was to me just blowing away, inspiring, and beautiful. And given that it had a letter that it seems was written to you, what role did you play in creating say everything you can.
Thank you. You know, that was a really big, I guess, kind of turning point in really this mission and goal that, when I say team, it's me and this amazing woman over here, Gilda Squire, who's my manager. But, you know, these two Black women trying to really show a positive influence and message for young Black girls especially. And that was the work that we had been doing when Under Armour came along. To be embraced by the sports community was very important too, because dancers are not often put in that category. We certainly aren't paid as much as professional athletes and should be, but don't often get that respect. You know, that it takes just as much or more training and athletics, as well as the artistry, to do what we do. So with that ad, it was really important that we showed another side of what a ballerina looks like and what a ballerina can be. So you don't see me in a tutu, you don't see me in pink tights, you see my body, you see my muscles, you see the athleticism as well as the artistry. But it was also important with that letter, which was inspired by my own experience of being, you know, starting out late and being a young Black girl and often being told no. You know, in situations when I had auditioned for certain ballet schools or summer intensive programs. So it kind of just came together in this perfect storm of a commercial. I don't think any of us anticipated that I Will What I Want campaign would have blown up the way that it did, but it definitely, I think, put ballet dancers and dancers on the same level and playing field as a lot of these athletes. And even just to look at the opportunities for us to get endorsement deals, that's not something that's even considered or offered to dancers. And it definitely, I think, changed the way that brands were looking at dancers and their impact and influence on the world.
Never about you. Never about you. Yes.
Well, welcome to academia and welcome to DC. Even though you are dean of the college here, are you still going to be doing television or acting still?
I've been doing it. Thank you very much. Yes, I've been doing it. I find little pockets of things where I'm offered some work that I can do. Sometimes I have to walk away from work that would be lucrative and meaningful, because it would take me away from my position, physically away, for too long a period of time. This is something that just happened. There was a Broadway show in the making, and I was scheduled to be in it. And when they came out with their calendar and I looked at it, I said, this is the entire second semester of what will be my third year, and I can't do that. You know, I can't do that. There are other things I can do, though. There are other opportunities that present themselves. So it's, you know, it's nothing to be sad about. You know, it's just what it is. Yes.
So how do you know what your calling is or what you want to do in life when you like so much, like you like a lot of things?
Exposure to everything. How do you know what your calling is? You're exposed to everything.
Remember when I said I want to be still enough so that I would miss myself? You actually have to do inside out living. You can't just like take from the outside and then put it all on the inside. You got to be still from the inside and the outside. And your experiences allow you the opportunity to know how God is moving you and where God is moving you and what that purpose is. And that can change. Like, you don't have to just, some people have one for their whole lives. Some people have many. You don't just have to do one thing. We're not monolithic. We're not one-dimensional. One of the worries I have for young people who spend a lot of time on social media is that, like, screens flatten people, but we're really, like, so much to us. So I would say be still from the inside out. Allow what interests you, what do you like, what don't you like, and how does that move you and call you? And in keeping with, it's never about you, how does that move you to help and inspire others?
Yeah.
We have one last question.
Thank you. This message is for Ms. Rashad and Ms. Parker. Both of you attended HBCUs. So, Ms. Parker, you were just talking about experiences. So I'd love to know how that experience shaped both of you.
Woo-hoo. Is there anything like it?
There's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it.
It is nothing better.
There's just in a world surrounded by excellence and forward thinking and yourself,
Yes.
and yourself.
And race is not on the table, right? And so there are many things that are on the table that could be quite superficial, but it's not your race. And it's the first time in my life that I had been in an environment where I never had to wonder if it was because I was black that I didn't get it or I didn't do it. But to be surrounded by so much excellence was incredible. And last weekend, we had graduation weekend at Hampton, and we have class names. There are 3 class names at Hampton. And my class celebrated our 35th reunion. But to be there I'm 56, and so to be there with people who I was there when I was 18 years old, and to walk the campus and to look at like where we were and to pour in, I can't even describe it, but it's an experience that I've never had anywhere else in my life.
Being a part of expanding culture.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Developing culture, musical trends, dance trends, hairstyles and fashion.
We made culture.
Yeah. It was full-on experience,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
And there's no question of who you are, why you're here.
And they really are, I lead Google HBCU President's Council. Howard and Hampton are both a part of it. But our HBCUs really are national treasures and graduate more Black people in STEM than predominantly white institutions, even though the enrollment is smaller. And we all need to get behind our institutions and honor them and pour money into them and ensure that government legislation works for our historically Black colleges as well, because they really are national treasures.
And we need to do so without people feeling that it's at their expense.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
We do. I mean, this is what I really long for. In my work, I had the agenda that my work would clearly demonstrate that people are much more alike than we could ever be different. And that is what I've experienced. I experience it in my work, and I experience it in the audiences that see the work, that you could see yourself in a woman who works in a stamping plant in Detroit because she's a laborer just like you. That I could see myself as Violet Weston in August Osage County. All my children blonde-haired and red-haired, none of them really looking like me. But the audience believing I was their mother because I was, you know. That you could see that humanity can see itself fully within itself and not feel threatened by that. And to understand it's important for all of us to be able to do. It's important. Otherwise, we continue in a facade that is perilous in this time. It threatens the very fabric of our nation. And I'm not having it.
Me either. I'm not having it either.
Thank you. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen,